Yeah, thanks, Satvinder. And, so nice of you, Sahana, to join us.
Thank you, sir. Thank
And,
you.
as you probably know, we are all from the ALS group. And to introduce to all of you, Sahana, I have a little bit of a bio here in front of me. She's an MS in speech language pathology and brings 5 years of expertise to her role in neurorehabilitation. She works with individuals facing MND, Parkinson's, stroke, traumatic brain injuries. So, we can all dip into her expertise. And I'm sure as she takes on the session, she will guide us in terms of Sahana, whether you want us to interrupt you and ask questions, or we want to, you want to finish a module and then ask questions. I'm sure you'll let us know.
Sure.
Sahana's commitment extends beyond her clinical work, and she actively engages in promoting awareness and support for those with both with acute and chronic impairments. And she's dedicated to enhancing lives through effective communication and rehabilitation. So, just the things we all want to hear, and we hope we can, you can really help us out in whatever way in this space. So, over to you, Sahana.
Thank you. Thank you for this wonderful introduction. Okay, I'll share my screen now. I hope everyone is able to see my screen. Let me put in the presenter mode, slideshow. Yeah. Okay. So, thank you for having me here. This is purely for persons with ALS and their caregivers, and I want to look at practical strategies of everyday life rather than medical advice here. That's what I believe you all be expecting. So, as the introduction said, hi everyone, I'm Sahana. I did my undergrad and postgrad from Chennai, Sri Ramchandra Institute of Higher Education. I do have my own family members having Parkinson's issues. So I'm extremely passionate towards these issues, neurorehabilitation and everything. I'm a visiting consultant in major hospitals, and I also do clinic-based consulting. So let's now start our. So for me, I am going to focus actively on how to maintain our voice and swallowing safety. I'll be covering some evidence-based strategies from the morning, what all you can do, and how we can preserve our speech and communication and swallowing. I'm not going to focus heavily on definitions, medical jargons. It is all purely going to be about our experiences and how to make things easier. So I've divided my PPT into 4 subtopics. First, we will look into how and why and some practical tips on communication separately and swallowing. And as caregivers, what we can do next. If you have any comments, please do put them in the chat box and we will come at the end of the presentation and I'll have a look forward. So my first subsection is the organs that is involved in speech production. So major 3 organs, my lungs, my voice box, and my oral structure. So here I have a video.
So, if your video has any audio, we are not able to hear it,
Okay, I'll
but
probably share.
we can see the video.
Yeah, so essentially what I'll give a voiceover. So essentially what happens is for you to speak, you need to have the lungs and your voice box and the oral structure. I hope everyone is familiar with this. Air comes from the lungs, pass through the voice box, and then it exhales. So primarily, if my communication is affecting, my respiratory mechanism is important. My primary aspect is my lungs. Then comes my voice box, then comes my oral structure. As you saw in the video, the air is coming out and how the it's bursting out through the mouth, and that's how we speak. I'll come back to this video with the audio. Now let us just move forward. So when I have in people with ALS, I hope you all must have seen this or experienced this. There is going to be muscle weakness. There will be a decreased rate of speed and strength, and there will be fasciculations. Fasciculations are nothing but small tremors. With respect to oral structures, you will see the tremors on your tongue, and reflexes in the tongue might be absent, and the vocal cord movement will be different. So this is what generally happens for a person with an ALS. Of course, I have put only the main points. I'm not going to delve into much medical aspect, but on a larger scale, this is what is generally seen. So, signs and symptoms of lung. If I have a lung weakness, how will my voice sound like? How will I speak? If I have a difficulty with my lung, my voice will be softer than before. My loudness variability and range would be reduced. I'll not be able to project or shout or speak to the person from to another room. I'll be using shorter phrases because I'll be running out of air. And then I have a mono loudness. I do not have a variation in my voice. And lastly, there will be a fatigue. Just by speaking, there will be a fatigue. So this says that, oh, there is a weakness with respect to my lungs. Now next comes voice box. My voice box weakness. What will I have it? If my voice box is altered, my vocal cord movements is have a particular weakness. So I'll have a strained or strangled, raspy, breathy voice. Sometimes there will be a discomfort when I'm speaking continuously. There also be troubles where I have the feeling to take a break. And then after speaking after speaking for a long time, you'll feel something is in your throat. That's called the globus sensation. And then the reduced pitch inflation. Pitch inflation is I speak like this or I speak like this. There is such a pitch inflation happening. When my voice box isn't functioning appropriately, my pitch inflation will also be affected. Then the next thing is the oral structure. If I have difficulties with respect to the oral structures, my words are going to be slurred. My pronunciation is going to be imprecise. My rate of speech will either be fast or either be slow. These are the these three things. So now we have seen whys, what happens to the persons with ALS. Now let us look into the communication journey. So as an SSLP, how can I help you? What is my role here? So first I would evaluate, identify the problem area, see which part of the oral mechanism or the entire structure is affecting the subsystems, either in my lungs or a resonance or my voice box or my oral cavity. Next, I also look into the cognition, because how aware and how ability to manage is important. So cognition is also an important factor. Then after I evaluate, then I identify the problem areas, I look into the treatment. I start treatment by anticipating problems. I have my own in Chennai. That's what I've been speaking to people with the ALS community. I feel in Tamil Nadu there is no community, and it was just one fine day I was trying to find a community through online, and this came up. But in my patients, I see a lot of people here in Tamil Nadu are also with ALS. So while I work with them, I anticipate the problem because I've identified what kind of issue they have, what kind of a problem areas they have. So I start anticipating what happens next before it happens. When I do that, I can give a proper intervention and management strategies so that it doesn't affect them in the longer run. And importantly, working with a multidisciplinary and working with a pulmonologist, working with a neurologist is also important in all of these aspects. I cannot take credit just saying, oh, me as an SLP working. Everyone is important here. So what I do with my patients here is I start early. It is the power of early intervention. I call it the proactive steps. People say that now I am all right. Why should I start now? I don't believe in that. One of the most powerful things that we can do is to be actually proactive. Waiting till the significant difficulty arise often means we have missed out on opportunities. So I don't really advise that. So having a baseline is really important. So even when things are really normal, we are trying to establish a typical speech and swallowing pattern. So this gives us the benchmark for comparison on the subtle changes that I can expect sooner. What I do next is I work on preventable exercises. For someone, it can be maintaining the range of motion. For someone, it can be the strength, the coordination of the muscles used in speech and swallowing. And I'll tailor these for the individuals and do a simple tongue movements lip exercises. Actually, research in the exercises in ALS is still evolving. But for me, I always say that targeted but gentle movements to maintain existing function is always my go-to approach. I don't do excessive practice or drilling. I do targeted and gentle movements so that I maintain my movements. And finally, third is adaptive strategies. So this is about integrating strategies early. So this is not about, when I take patients here, they said that, I have not yet developed that difficulty. Why should I start early? So I always say this is not about giving early. This is more about being smart. This is more about being efficient. For an example, learning pacing technique for speech or any modifying of food texture slightly it becomes more necessary is important. And finally, why it all matters. The why behind this is proactive approach is crucial. It helps in maximizing our current function and makes our future transition very smoother. So ultimately keeping us in control for a longer time. This is what I generally repeat to my patients here, why it is necessary, why this is proactive step or early intervention is important. So maximizing your voice. So what all I can do? Some strategies, simple strategies. So even as changes occur, there is so much that we can do to maximize our natural voice. So first thing is pacing and breath support. This is perhaps I would say the most impactful because instead of rushing down, it slows down. Think about taking a breath for every 3 to 5 words or in between natural phrases. Uh, it's like saying, I went to the grocery shop, I bought breads and eggs. Instead of that, I would say, I went to the grocery store, I bought breads, eggs. This is much more efficient. So I would say pacing and having 3 to 4 words per breath is efficient. So, but why this is efficient? This is because it conserves your energy. When it conserves your energy, you are automatically sounding better. And it is better for the listener to process the information rather than you going in a very fast pace. So slow down, take a breath for every 3 to 4 words. This is necessary. Even while you're not having this difficulty, starting early will help in the later stages of the disease progression because we for a fact know that there is going to be speech difficulty. So it is better to start now. And next is over articulation. I call this rather than over articulation. I say it's speaking with intention. What is speaking with intention? It is exaggerating our lip, tongue, and jaw movements. Like for example, we have seen theater artists. Theater artists speak like this. Hi, how are you? Are you well? Today I had dosa for breakfast. So there is a exaggerated mouth movements like this. I mean, it might sound so really funny in the beginning, but trust me, this will help in forming each and every sound precisely. It might be unusual, as I said, but it improves the clarity to a, I would say, more than 60%. It improves the clarity because you are giving the time, you are putting the effort because you're speaking with an intention, and then you're trying to work on every sounds, thereby your pronunciation will improve. Trust me, I do this not only with ALS, I also work the similar way with my stroke patients when they have a slurred voice. It is a very intentional speaking method. It will not come in 1 or 2 days. Of course, you need a speech therapist to guide you on how to do this. It might sound simpler, but there are also multiple steps along with this. So it is a way of communicating, a little subtle change that you do it. That is more important. And volume and pitch. Sometimes a slightly higher pitch can be easier, and controlled volume can be easier to manage. But not try not to shout. So this is more about finding the balance on how loud and also the what volume I speak is appropriate for the listener who's listening to us. Shorter sentences, as I said earlier, break down complex thoughts into simpler, more digestible phrases. This reduces the cognitive load on us and also on the listener. Because when you think and speak automatically, when you keep thinking and you speak, there is a cognitive load that is happening, and you also perform the words. The signals has to come from the brain to our lips, and then we speak. But having slowing it down and having reducing the cognitive load, it is much more easier for us to be intelligible with our speech. Our pronunciation errors will come down majorly. And finally, the environmental adjustment. This is very vital for caregivers too, because reducing the background noise, turning off the TV, if there is noise, close the door, and always face the speaker and the listeners facing the speaker, and ensuring that they have a visual cues, add gestures if you want, and try not to communicate from other room or facing in a facing backwards. This is really important. Next thing is strengthening what you have. So these are specific speech therapy exercises that can be done. So which are lip exercises, tongue strengthening exercises, and LSVT loud techniques is for you to speak louder, and breath support so that you don't struggle for air. This is very specific. I'm not going to speak much in detail because it's going to be very individualized according to the patient. But in general, overall, this is what I focus on. So I know that there is going to be difficulties in my communication as my disease progress. So as my natural speech becomes more challenging, we have an incredible array of communication tools at our disposal. That is augmentative and alternative communication, or AAC. When I usually prescribe this to persons with ALS, there is much of an adaptation. But usually, when I prescribe this to for a stroke patient or anyone else, there is some kind of resistance. This is what I tell to everyone. If you're not able to see, you wear spectacles. Similarly, that's no taboo in wearing spectacles. Everyone you're not able to see, you wear spectacles. It's very generalized now. Similarly, when your words are not proper, using a communication tool it should be generalized, but in India there is some kind of resistance. I would say this is what I say. It's like having a spectacle for someone who is who has a vision problem. So similarly, I have a speaking problem. I use a tool. I use my phone or I use any of these options that I'm going to speak about. So first is the low tech option. This is very foundational. It's a very simple communication tools with common phrases and letters. There's also an alphabet board where you can point the letters and see, surprisingly, it works best. Writing, yes or no, uh, these are all the valid low tech that we can do it. They are quick, they're easy to use, and they don't really need a technology for this. The next is high tech. High tech is where innovation truly shines here. There is something called speech generating devices, which where you type or select messages and it is being spoken out loud. There's also this predictability. You don't have to type in the full word. You just have to say one or two words, then it gives you the prediction. So you press it, then it tells out. There's also this eye gazing technology if we have difficulties with our fingers, and which is really revolutionary. I saw it in a school that they are using for people with cerebral palsy here. I've not seen much of an individual use still in India. One of the reason being cost effective. And then the next thing I would say it's crucial in AAC is banking, which is the voice banking and message banking. Voice banking allows you to record a substantial amount of your natural voice so that now you can create a synthesized voice on your own and which is used along with the speech generating devices. I would speak much on voice banking in the next slide. So the message banking allows us to record specific or often used phrases in our own voice, saying such as "Good morning," "I love you," "Can I have some water," something like this. So this preserves, trust me, this preserve the emotional and our identity. Something that we strongly suggest exploring very early is banking. I've described this to my patients here and they love using banking methods, especially the message banking, which they do it. But one thing that I would like to say here is integration and practice. Now you don't have difficulty. Just because now you don't have difficulty doesn't mean that you should not start using it. The key to successful AAC usage is to integrate earlier and also into daily life and practicing it still, even when our natural speech is functional. Think of it as just another tool. After this communication has gone using it, then you'll not have much of an usage or effect out of it. Next is banking. So banking is not about just words. It's about, as I said, it's about more of, preserving our personality. You think about how you greet people, your favorite expressions, everything. So there are two types of banking, which is the voice banking and the message banking here. The voice banking is you preserve your voice into a device, and that device will help in creating novel sentences which you have not spoken. So it will create your own voice and it will use that voice and it will synthesize your voice, and whatever sentence that you want to speak, it will speak it out for you in your own voice. So it is used with an AAC devices. It's essentially a synthetic voice. It can compose unlimited ideas or novel sentences. But message banking is different. Is it specific message we record and we save it? So whenever we want, you can only press those specific messages, unless voice banking, where you can have n number of sentences that can be created. Message banking is where you use the specific messages or specific uh, phrases that can be used. As I said, it is important to start early before my communication, my pronunciation starts to deteriorate. It is important to record our own voice and keep it. I use message banking with my patients here. I use an AAC device in the phone where I've started to put every message and every voice, so that now she is using it alternatively. Now she's just not using separately. She does speak, but whenever it is becoming very difficult and she's fatigued, she's very tired, she cannot speak more. And nowadays, phone has become something, it is an extension of her hand. Usually, phone is always with us. So now she uses her phone where there is message banking along with her voice whenever the throat is very rough or very raspy. That's what she's been using. So what to remember here is when words becomes harder, alternative communication tools is necessary. And as I said, technology doesn't really replace our communication, it enhances it. And integration and practice, I keep saying it in the last 3 slides, it is necessary because if you start now, then only it will become effective in the later stages. So now we have finished communication. Let us now go on to the swallowing issues. How swallowing generally is. Um, Pardon the this one. It is. I think it's a little loud. The mouth. Okay. So there are 4 major organs that I would say: the mouth, the backside of my mouth, and my throat, and my food pipe. So let me show a video. There is no audio in this video, so I'll show the video now. So as you can see here, this is my mouth and I chew here. I push my food so that it goes to the back of my throat. And my back of my throat, this I call it the velopharyngeal port. This is a port which essentially allows air to the nose. So the muscle closes here so that food doesn't come out through our nose. And then the next muscle is here. This is my voice box or my windpipe. This muscle closes and it is only allowing food to go into my food pipe. So we will see again. You see, generally my voice box windpipe is open because breathing is necessary. No? So it will not close. It will only close, my windpipe will only close when I'm eating something, when I'm swallowing something. Similarly, this pipe behind, I don't think the pointer is working. 1 second. Can you see now? Yeah. So here essentially is the next pipe valve, I would say, which closes so that the air doesn't leak out through or the food doesn't leak out through my nose. And next, where is it? This is my voice box. This is my windpipe here. So essentially this muscle here, it will close, allowing only my food pipe to be activated during the time of swallowing. So if you see this video again, how do I play this again? Wait. Yeah. So as you see here, my voice box will close. My nose, behind my nose, there's a velopharyngeal port that will close so that it doesn't allow food to come out through my nose. And this is how I eat. So what can happen in people with ALS? So when there is, we will look into each and every aspect. As I said, there are major 4 things that is involved. That is my mouth, my back of my mouth, my throat, and my food pipe. So when I have difficulties with respect to my mouth, so that is the lips, my tongue, my cheek. So if there is a lip weakness, the food will escape through my mouth. There'll be poor bolus contamination or what we call as the anti-respiratory. If my cheek muscles are weak, then I'll have difficulty in chewing, the rate, then the strength of the bite, then the range to which I can open my mouth and manipulate my jaw and my movement. More I eat, there can also be fatigue when there is a masticatory muscle weakness. Then when I have a tongue weakness, I'll have poor bolus manipulation. Bolus manipulation is when you chew, you make it into a ball and then you push it back. So when you chew, you're unable to make it into a ball effectively. So you're not able to push back easily. So it stays in our mouth for a longer time. Sometimes what happens, even before we swallow, there is something called premature spillage. Even before we swallow, the swallowing initiation occurs, the food will fall down because my tongue is weak and there can be oral residues. Whenever after eating one mouthful, you ask the patient to say, you can see food all around the mouth. Next is my vocal cords. If I have problems with my vocal cords, they will not close effectively and food will go into the wrong pipe because I have a poor breathing coordination. So food is going into the wrong pipe. I'm getting cough or there is no cough. and my airway protection is not maintained. So now how, again, as an SLP, how can I help you here? So I first evaluate, I see all the swallowing structure. Where is the problem? You have problem in your mouth, you have problem in the back of your mouth or the throat, or it is the timing and the coordination of the food pipe and the windpipe. Is it because of that? I see and identify the problem area. Again, next, my treatment, I'm going to make sure that you're not eating through the wrong pipe. I think that is more important. The more you're eating through the wrong pipe is, then only the doctors will suggest an internal feeding tubes, where they'll put tubes, either an nasogastric tube or a PEG tube or a G tube that we are going to see. So what is really important here is minimizing the risk that food is not going into the wrong pipe. The next is anticipate. I know as I see what all the problem areas, then I'll be able to identify and anticipate what kind of difficulties that you might face in the future. So accordingly, with respect to that, I'll start giving you some therapy techniques or strategies when we can manage eating effectively. And again, I'm not going to take credit by saying everything with respect to the SLP. We need help of an ENT, pulmonologist, radiologist, everyone here. So simple strategies, I hope everyone do follow this. So swallowing, I wouldn't say swallowing is all about restricted. You're not able to do it, don't do it. For me, eating is a pleasure activity. Eating is a pleasure thing, taste is a pleasure one. So you eating is also as a pleasure thing. So I wouldn't say swallowing safety isn't about restriction, it's more about making smart choices. Um, so when you're having, say, for an example, you love taking morning coffee, but you're having difficulties with respect to eating your coffee, then we will find out what kind of temperature and what temperature if you take, what consistencies and what temperature if you take, it is effective. Then we will find out that, and then we will provide you that. So you can still enjoy your morning coffee, but being more safely. So I wouldn't say swallowing safety is about restricting. You're unable to do it, don't do it. Jumping into conclusion is really hard. So first we have to understand what, where, and how is the issues, then we can work out. The easy steps are sitting upright and always having your chin down. Because as I said, my voice box is here. If I do this effectively, I'm able to swallow. I'm restricting my windpipe. I'm closing my windpipe by doing that, so that the food will not go into the wrong pipe. And I'll have cough and I'll have weight loss and I'll have pneumonia. Nothing will happen. So what I would essentially suggest is a simple chin tuck and effortful swallow is generally I recommend at the early stages. Make it into a make it into a practice so that it is easier for you on the longer run. And also staying upright after eating is also important. Next thing is alternating between bite and sips. When you're having residues or when you're unable to effectively propel the food, alternating between a bite and a sip is recommended. Third is have multiple swallows. Don't just swallow once. Multiple swallows just for one bolus is important. And of course, avoid speaking while eating because we want only one pipe to be active. We don't want windpipe to be active and food pipe to be active at the same time. We want only one pipe to be active, that is the food pipe. So that. Then the next is texture, appropriate consistencies, and maintaining proper bite size is important. So what I can do here is there are exercises, of course. So exercises does help in maintaining the function in a longer run and fighting the atrophy that is going to happen. But again, this is not going to prevent the disease progression or the weakness. It's all about having control, being in control for a longer time. So the exercises can be tongue strengthening exercises, breath support, and an effortful swallow practice. I'm not going to go much in detail about this because it is going to be very specific and tailor-made for each and every patient. If you want any further queries, you can reach out to me later on. So next is empowering caregivers. So eating when the patient is alert is important. When the patient is drowsy, eating through mouth is not recommended. J tube, peg tube, and nasogastric, that's another criteria. But eating when the patient is alert is important. And always using appropriate posture with good head support is really important. If you're having any non-invasive ventilation that before meals that you can do it, just take that. And avoid longer meals because fatigue will set in. So I would say smaller meals, but instead of just 3 meals, I would say 5 meals, but smaller meals. So as caregivers, what I have seen in my hospitals with respect to either the patient is Parkinson's or MND disease or a stroke patient, they just go about giving the food like this. So what it is really important for us is to learn and look for the cues. You see whether the patient has finished swallowing. And also one of the important things that I say is just because food is not there in the mouth doesn't mean that food is there here. It can be stuck here, it can be stuck here, it can be stuck here. You would never know. So just because the food is not there in the mouth doesn't mean the patient has successfully swallowed the food. That is why I earlier said have multiple swallows just for one bolus and alternate between sips and solid liquids and waters so that it kind of efficient in swallowing. And proper chin down is also important. And respect pacing. It's not about, okay, next spoon, next spoon. No, you see, look for the cues and do it. Have a communication device. Usually when the patient is unable to communicate, you see whether the patient is ready or it is stuck in that, then we can go about. And meals, as I said, it's much more a pleasure activity. Having to eat my dosa in the morning, it's such a pleasure for me. So, or having my filter coffee being in Tamil Nadu it's a pleasure for me. So, the meal time should be very pleasurable, not pressured, because you're consistently worried about choking or patient coughing. I don't want that.
Yeah, yeah.
The next is involve them, see what, ask them, and lead them. And so when to seek help from an SLP, as I said earlier, with respect to speech is frequent risk when you find that when you need frequent repetition from the patient, or the patient is not avoiding the phone calls, or there is fatigueness after speaking, and the family noticing some changes with respect to their pronunciation. This is with respect to the speech. And with respect to the swallowing, there is coughing effect, immediate coughing during or after meals. There is food sticking in the throat sensation, or gurgly voice, wet voice. Voice is double. That's what we mean by gurgly voice. Voice feels very double. And then there is weight loss. And then or the patient themselves, they're saying that they don't want it. Then I would say, please don't wait. Early intervention means better outcome. And I'm seeing that effectively with all my patients here. So I would generally recommend everyone for an early intervention, because see, living with ALS doesn't mean we are stopping stuff. We are just adapting to certain things. So I have seen family members creating newer traditions. So life just continues. It's just, you have to look into a different aspect. And of course, you don't have to implement everything all at once. Pick one or two strategies, feel what is manageable, and then you start. So you always remember, all doctors and all therapists here, we are all there to support. And through each and every stages of your journey. So this is really important. Having to adapt, not by, okay, this is what has happened, this is what my life is, so I stop doing it. But that should not be your go-to answer. Next is, so my takeaways are early intervention, which will provide more options for us. And practice daily the oral strengthening exercises, the tongue strengthening exercises, lip strengthening exercises, LSVT, loud exercises, breath support exercises. These all have positive impact with people with ALS. They help in having the control for a longer time. So practice every day, but do it in smaller bites. Don't practice to such extent that you get fatigued just by practicing it. I wouldn't recommend that. Practice also should be, doing the therapy exercises should also be done in a fun way, not doing drilling it so much more time so that they become fatigued just by doing the practice. I wouldn't suggest that also. And next, of course, you're not alone. And adaptation is the key. When I say adaptation with respect to everything, they say that, oh, they're giving up the quality of life. That is not it. So adapting to what fits best for you is really important. So I would leave my contact details and support with everyone here. I have not included because I know the meeting is recorded and it will be published elsewhere. So I don't want my number to be seen everywhere. So I would leave my contact details in the chat box. If you have any concerns, I'm also open for teleconsultations. If you can have it, it's also lovely. We can do that. And I'm slowly hoping to integrate all of my patients from Tamil Nadu also in this group. I want to make this group much more pan-India, having a lot of people. So let us see. And now I'm open for the Q&A. I hope you'll enjoyed it because I don't want to focus on heavy medical jargon. I wanted to do it in a very smaller, subtle way. So you have any questions, please do tell me.
Yeah, thank you, Sahana. And yeah, we're open for questions. So if people have questions, please come up. Okay. I have a question around voice banking, message banking. So, are there any
Yes.
conveniently available tools that can be tried?
Yes. Yes. So there is one tool called Jep Talk. It's not there in Google Play Store. You have to download it from the Google as such. What it does is it allows you to record your own messages, and it is more like an AAC device. And I would say it's the best thing that I've come across because even paid versions doesn't really work like this. Even the paid ones are not this good level. So I will, if needed, I'll just drop it in the chat box, Jap Talk. We can also have yeah, so I'll write it Jap Talk, which is JAB and TALK, Jap Talk. This is it's not voice banking. This is a message banking device. It's more of an AAC, a message banking device. It's a free to use. It is not available in Play Store. You have to download it from the Google. I use it with almost all of my patients and they love it. There were initial difficulties, integrating difficulties, and you also need a speech therapist to guide you on how to use it. So when it is used in a proper way, it helps patients in communicating in a longer run. So maybe, I mean, in the future, if anyone is interested, we can also have just a session on voice banking and message banking, a separate session because it's a huge task.
Okay,
If needed.
that would be quite interesting.
Yeah, yeah. And voice banking is just you say few words like ah, ee, woo, and then few words, you put it in the device. Now the device will, with AI and stuff, it will know your voice and it will start speaking in your own voice. Whatever you type, now your voice will come. That is voice banking. But message banking is just purely message, and voice banking is very expensive. It's still not available in India. I have seen it in India in there's a museum here. I've seen it there, but not much in an individual usage. But message banking, yes, it's very popular. I mean, that's what I've been using for all of my patients. See, again, message banking or voice banking or any communication tool, I would never suggest it as a tool where keep your natural speaking voice separately, tools separately. I always say integrate both. That is more easier. Integrating is easier. But there are also a lot of steps to do this. It's not very easy. So let us see. If we need to talk about just banking tools, we can have some separate sessions.
Okay, that's nice. Thanks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
So
I, I have a question regarding the same, as since we are already in this issue.
Sure,
So
sure.
when we do message banking,
Yeah.
when the person is still not able to, use his or her fingers and all that, there's no movement at all involved. How can he or she communicate with the message banking? Is that possible? I'm not able to understand how.
Yeah, so see, message banking is a way, it is not the destination. Let's say, for an example, the destination is communication. You can go there by auto, you can walk, you can take a car, or you can also take a train. So communication, so message banking is the way to go. But how it reaches is whether you're using that with a what an application based device, or you're using with a eye gaze device. You get the point. Message banking is not the end. Message banking is a way that you're banking your messages so that you can express it. The expressing is either to an application based apps, that's what I use here, or through eye gaze devices, that also we can do it. So when the patient is unable to touch, you can also use it with an eye gaze devices.
Okay.
Again, in India it's still coming, it is coming. I have seen a person using an eye gaze device. They got it from the US. The family member got it for them from the US. In India it is not sold. If I could find something for my case, I will happily share it with you.
Yeah, that will be wonderful.
Yeah.
Eye gaze devices are really expensive, no, like
Yeah.
8-9 lakh around.
Yeah. No, there are also, it's very expensive, but there are also funds that it is available in the US, so you can get it for a cheaper rate. There are two things I do that for people who are in the moderate level of the disease progression, I would be using the application based where we use a tab. So the icons are much bigger. So even if a little movement that they can do, it's much easier.
Oh, that's a good idea. Thank you for telling me.
I use a tab.
Yeah.
And the next thing, what I do is having two different items in one or two different items, so that it's not eye gaze and the device speaks on its own. It's me finding where the patient is having that eye gaze and identifying that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I use this, the extender that you get. You can attach it to the bed or a table. This
Okay.
extender, you can put your phone or you can put your tablet in it. So I put it in their face level.
Okay.
Then I see, okay, ma'am, what do you want to do today? What do you want to? And then I see where she's looking at. And I'm like, oh, okay, you want to do this? Yes or no? Then she does yes, like that, a blink. They'll be, okay, let's do that. Or if she doesn't blink for, say, 2 to 3 seconds, I'll be, okay, let's go back. Again, is it this
Okay.
here you're looking at it? Then yes. It is
Okay.
easier once we start working on
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It is much more strenuous because I guess it works on its own. But we have to start looking at these aspects. I take the connector. I get it from Amazon for 300-400 rupees. I put it. I usually take a tab rather than a phone. Four big icons, so that I know
Okay.
where the person is looking at it and working on it.
Okay.
But this
Thanks.
can be done even with simple pen and paper, not necessarily, I would say, high-tech devices. Even
We
a
have to
yeah.
focus where the person is
It's their
looking
comfortable
or they're
level.
blinking or not.
Their
Yeah.
comfortable level. Even
Hmm.
as just yesterday, I was in the Xerox printing machine. I was taking huge A3 boards cards for my patient in my hospital. So what I did was to take in A3 in nice thick cards. I printed the words that she and the family generally uses. So, and then so I go about asking, do you want to communicate, yes or no? Yes. Is the word is in this page? She will do yes or
Okay.
no. If it is no, I'll take it. If it is in this page, because it is very big in A3, yes. Then, oh, it is in this page. So it is this row? No. Is it this row? Yes. If it is this row,
Okay.
there's only, are you talking about this? Yes, I do it.
Okay.
She wanted us to adjust her bed.
Okay,
She was
okay,
lying
okay.
in one position and she wanted us to adjust bed.
Hmm,
We
hmm,
had difficulty. Even I myself had difficulties in understanding the patient. The nurses came, the family members came, the duty doctor was there. We were all going about giving option. The patient got irritated and she just went, and then that. Then I
Yes,
said,
yes.
okay, wait, let me do that. Then we
Hmm.
did it. And then I said, you want this or this? Then we found out, oh, she want her to adjust her. She's been lying in
Okay,
that
okay.
particular position. Then we
Hmm.
did that. She was so
Yeah.
happy. I mean, you could see a simpler moment is
Hmm.
important.
Yes, yes.
And again, the everything comes back to how proactive I start my exercises also. My exercises are also
Hmm.
important. It will help in the longer run, especially working with your tongue and your breath support. There are
Hmm.
multiple ways for us. The newer evidence-based practices have now come that helps people to stay or to communicate or eat through mouth in the longer run.
Oh. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Any other questions? I will drop my contact details here. So
Yeah.
in the chat box. So if you have anything, you can message me and my mail ID also. Yeah. If you have any other doubts, you can ask.
Yeah, any other questions? Sahana, any last words from you if we have no other questions?
Yes, sir. So, see, ultimately, I know, as I said earlier, my family member, my grandfather, he passed away 2 years back. He had Parkinson's. It was not MND, ALS, but he had Parkinson's. But working earlier helped us a lot, so that we, as caregivers, what I also feel, there is amount of burnout that happens. How much ever mom provides, how much ever dad does it, how much ever you keep a person to help, like a caretaker, ultimately there is some kind of a burnout that is going to happen. But ever since my grandfather was diagnosed, I was very proactive. I started to work on his exercises, tongue exercises, his swallowing exercises. So, which even till the day that he passed, he was not on any kind of tube for eating, and he was communicating orally. Of course, he a lot of gestures were there. He would say like this, like this. There were a lot of gestures, not completely spoken, but I kind of take pride in that, so that my grandfather, he was not put in any nasogastric tube or had tracheostomy, because nowadays I also am associated with the Parkinson's Foundation here in Chennai. I see patients who come to me with tube. They come to me with, then they ask, how can I remove the tube? I would say disease progression has happened. Now let us look into quality of life, so that for pleasure, I give food. But major food happens through a tube only, PEG tube or J tube. But for pleasure, with the appropriate consistencies, I give one or two sips or one or two food, so that the quality of life is not fully gone down. So again, in with respect to ALS also, working early and then doing exercises at the very beginning is important.
Okay, great. And one last question for you. Is your consultation, can it happen over virtual as well for those of us who are not in Chennai, or
Yeah.
it's typically face to face?
Yeah. I do it virtually because, I mean, when the patient is restricted, they're not able to move. So I do it virtually, but I would be talking with the caregiver with the medical knowledge more. That is more important.
Okay,
Yeah. So
good.
they become me. So I would be instructing them. They become me. So I pass on all my knowledge to the caregiver. And they respond me to ma'am, this is what is happening here in Chennai, even down south Chennai. That's what I do it. I see them in the hospital, they get discharged, they go home. So I, through video call, I tell the caregiver, I kind of train them to be medically alert to see what is happening. They respond to me back. Then we work together. That's what it happens. Because alone I cannot find. I need a caregiver to be there. Then caregiver being very responsive to me so that they are in a much communication, constant communication with me helps.
Great, wonderful. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for the
Thank you,
session,
thank you,
and thank you
thank you,
so
thank
much
you.
for guiding us.
Thank you.
And
Thank
I'm
you. I know
sure
this is all, I've only touched the tip of the iceberg. There are a lot to talk. If I have an opportunity, I would like to come back, speak specifically on single stuffs that, exercises, specific exercises. We can do that.
great. Okay, so thank you from all of us.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Sahana ji.
Yeah.
Namaskar.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.